Hey guys, welcome back. On today's episode, I wanted to invite someone that not only I admire, but that knows a thing or two or a handful about marketing, the influencer world, and everything about achieving your dream goal while being a boss. Beep! You know. So I have here Sam de Castro. Now, from what I met her, she was at e.l.f. Cosmetics, which is such a huge brand, and then went on to really build the powerhouse of what Fenty Beauty is now, and has recently, not so recently, but recently gone over to Naturium, which if you don't know is an amazing skincare brand that actually was just bought out by e.l.f. Cosmetics. So thank you, Sam, for being here.
Thanks for having me.
Of course, I couldn't think of anyone else that I would want to talk to. And if people don't know, you don't do this very often, if you've ever done this.
I've never done this.
Are you nervous?
First time. No, I'm okay. I'm
Okay,
good.
good. So the first question I want to start off with is, what did you want to be when you started college? And is that close to what you're doing now?
I think I really fell in love with marketing in college. I think my teacher, props to Mr. Lewis, he kind of like pushed us in the designing and creating logos and like really like understanding branding, ad stuff too. So originally when I went to college, I knew that I wanted to do marketing, but then just kind of like working with him, taking his classes, the world kind of like opened up for me. And so it was super exciting. And then I guess I just kind of thought that I wanted to do more like ad agency stuff.
Okay.
Which I had the opportunity to kind of do here when I came to LA. I was temping a lot in the beginning when I first came to LA. I left college and I was just kind of like, okay, I'm not quite sure like exactly what kind of marketing I want to do. I do want to like lean towards ad, but not quite sure. I didn't have my feet on the ground yet. So I was like temping at an ad agency for a little bit and it was a lot. It was crazy just seeing how the meetings were going and like seeing how crazed everybody was and like the deadlines and all that kind of stuff. And it was a little too chaotic, I would say, for me.
Now, if we bring it back, your love for marketing started in college.
Yeah.
But did you ever look into marketing when you were in high school? Or how did you even fall into marketing when you were in high school and growing up?
I guess thinking about it back now, like I knew that I wanted to be like in business.
Okay.
I wasn't sure exactly what part of business. Like in high school, I was like, oh, I definitely want to do something in business. Maybe be an entrepreneur. I was really big on like, swimsuits, finding like the right swimsuit for your body types. I like really wanted to do that, but I didn't know how to like break into it. So then I think like once it was time to make the move to decide like what college I wanted to go to and decide what I wanted to do, then I started doing a little bit more research around what made the most sense for me. And like, marketing just seemed cool because I've always just loved being creative and like, marketing does spark that like creativeness in me. So that's where I started.
And was your first internship or job in marketing?
Yeah, you could say so. It was like a boutique. A lady had me putting together different like, things and outfits for her shows that she was doing. She was doing a lot of like sponsored shows where she would take her articles of clothing and like dress models or like, dress them for a certain occasion. And that was like, helping her with that and then just helping her organize her marketing efforts around that. So
Now, I actually looked up a statistic because I wanted to talk about this, that 80% of students actually end up changing their majors in college. So did you change your major or you instantly went into business? So you were one of the few that you were like, I'm focused, I want to do this and I want to go into it.
Yeah.
Now, did you ever have another passion growing up that you wanted to kind of sprinkle in or dabble in and learn about?
I mean, like I mentioned, like beauty and fashion, I think were always on my mind. Like I loved makeup and skincare and like, tanning, if you know, taboo now, but all that kind of stuff.
Self-tanning is better now. Better for the skin. Now, what's your ethnicity for those that don't know?
Yeah, so I'm Latina. My parents are from Brazil and Ecuador.
Yeah, so I think it's the Brazilian in you that like loved the tanning
Love
out
the
in the
tanning,
sun.
exactly.
But we're all about self-tanning because we need to protect cancer free. Okay, so you did that marketing job, the boutique, and then how did you go into applying for, was e.l.f. the first beauty brand that you worked for?
No. So like I said, I came here to LA and I was just interning. I wouldn't call it interning, like temp. I was being paid. But I was living with my parents, so I had a little bit more freedom to pick and choose what kind of jobs I could do. So this job came about for Joico, which is a hair care brand.
I know Joico. They have great hair masks.
I know. So
Their
I knew
hair
them
masks are
from,
great,
from
yeah.
K-Pack. Like I would go to Ulta Beauty and I would buy like K-Pack and use that mask on my hair.
Okay.
It was like a full circle moment. Their temp agency reached out and they were like, hey, we have this opening for like PR assistant. Would you like to do this? I was like instantly like, yes, absolutely. This gives me a chance to do something that I've wanted to do for a little bit. So once I came in, this is like at the height of when social media was coming on. Like, influencers weren't really known. It was when Instagram was changing over and people were posting and making it more of like an influencer type thing. So just kind of coming on, I really took to it and just like really enjoyed what I was doing. I was, sometimes I'd be there a little bit later and like, working on stuff and like, finding things to post on Instagram because they immediately gave me like, a job of like, posting and doing that kind of stuff. The person that was there before me was doing like, the digital and social, and he was like, here, you do it. Like, he wasn't really interested in beauty. Like, he's a guy, a straight guy that had like no interest in like, doing. He was like, loved building emails and doing that kind of stuff. So then I think my boss noticed that I was doing such a good job and whatever. So this guy eventually leaves and they offered me his position, which was cool. So then I was super excited to accept the job and did that for a little bit. So
now, how long were you at Joico before you went to your next?
So I was at Joico for 5 years,
Okay.
Changed about 3 different roles, just like different titles and stuff. And then one of the things that I was doing a little bit of everything, like I said, I was doing email marketing. I was doing stuff for the website. I was working with our trade partners to do ads and stuff. And I was doing like influencer stuff. Like we started sending out boxes and like all that kind of stuff and social. And what I wanted to lean into was like more of the social side.
And I think something that you said there is that you were wearing from the beginning a lot of hats, which I think that nowadays people don't want to do the most. And sometimes not only because you're a woman, but as a Latina, and also just being so driven, you're willing to put on the hat to be able to achieve more and to be able to showcase your interest, right?
Yeah.
And I've noticed it in a few conversations that I've come across with younger people that they're like, well, this is what I got hired to do, so why do I have to do more? Well, when you have a passion for it, you're willing to do it all.
Go above and beyond. Exactly.
Of course.
Yeah. Like I said, like I was there late, just like working on stuff. We'd have an event and I was there making sure everything was like, organized correctly or done correctly. You just go above and beyond, especially when you're that young and you're that hungry and you're like, I'm really loving what I'm doing. So it's not a burden.
Right.
But yeah, that's true. In today's generation, it feels like people are too lazy, or no shade, but like people will be like, oh, my mental health, I can't do too much of this. Or, I understand like putting boundaries, but at the same time, there's also like a part where.
Well, I think there has to be a season of your life when you're focused on a goal. You have to go far and beyond your keeping your social group or having 9 to 9 schedule where you're like, I have to do this and I have to do this and this. You have to stretch your bandwidth to be able to get to new heights and new levels. Like that's just the reality of it. Yeah. Whether it's building a relationship with someone or it's building your career and your dream career with someone, Okay, so you did that, and then what happens next?
So like I said, from there, I was thinking, what do I want to do and like hone in on a little bit more? So I was like, I like social. So like, let me find a job that like focuses solely on social. So I'm not wearing so many hats. So at that time, I was like kind of interviewing around, and then I found this job at OPI, which was like a social manager. And so moved there, which I was also like an OPI lover. Just I bought like all the collections and things that would come out. So
they had a cult following for a while back in the day.
Yeah, it did.
Yeah.
So like anytime there was like a new collection, like I go to Ulta to see it and like pick out new shades. So I was like, oh, this is perfect. So I think just getting to touch another brand that I was like passionate about, I was really excited about.
Did your love from beauty come from seeing your family members love beauty, or was it more that you saw it and you wanted to attain it, you wanted to be able to afford it? Like, where did your love for beauty come?
I can say like a little bit of both. Okay. I think my mom and I'd say people a little bit closer to me aren't really into beauty the way I am. So I just remember like I used to get in trouble for painting my nails or putting makeup on. Latina moms are always like, what are you doing? Why are you painting your face? You're too young for this.
Like, no necesitas novio.
Yeah.
Take that off. Yeah.
Take it off. But I'd like, go to school and like, put eyeshadow on or something, and then I'd like take it off by the time I got home. But I will say that there are people in my family that I have seen and I've always admired them. I'm like, oh, she always wears like red lipstick, or she always does her hair or has curls. My grandma also like was passionate about her hair, so she always woke up with curls and stuff. So I think it's like a mix, but then it was also mainly me just wanting to attain that a little bit later, because I feel like this is part of me. I was always one person that always like, cared about like, what I wore or what I was putting on my face. So.
Same. I think for me growing up, I grew up without having the best setting, but my mom would work paycheck to paycheck. She was a single mom for a lot of the time. And I remember one of the first products I ever bought was L'Oreal True Match Foundation. And I thought it was so cool. I was like, oh my God, I've made it. And then growing up, I was like, I can't wait till I go into Sephora and I'm able to buy something, because Sephora was so expensive to me that I was a CVS and Walgreens girl. And even then, still to this day, you will walk into CVS and Walgreens and come out with a $200 tab that you're like, how did this happen?
Yeah.
How?
It's getting expensive.
Yeah. So it's like, for me too, beauty started really early on. And random little fun fact, I used to do the makeup for my friends. And back then it was Physicians Formula. I don't know if you ever used Physicians Formula, but it was a CVS brand.
Okay.
They're still around. And And they used to have a compact that was a sun, and it had different shades. So like bronzed all the way to like gold. It's the center for the sun.
Yeah.
And I used to just like rub it around and put it on people's faces. And I'd be like, you look beautiful. I was making them disco balls. I feel so bad. But still,
because it was shiny?
Yeah. And I thought they just looked beautiful. And everybody was like, yes, let's get ready to go to the underage party that we're not supposed to be going to. But we would go. And now I look back and I'm like, these people really trusted me doing their makeup. But
they loved it.
Yeah.
Apparently.
Okay. So back to you. We did Joico. We did OPI.
Yeah.
What at OPI made you be like, I either reached the end of this position or you just had to go on to the next thing? Were you like, oh, what did an opportunity come about?
An opportunity came about, and that was e.l.f., of course. But it was also the fact that at that point in time, like there was so many shifts and things happening. It had just been bought by Cody, so budgets were being taken away, and like we just weren't able to do as many cool things like I was used to doing.
Were you on LinkedIn? Because I think a lot of people that want to get into the marketing space nowadays may not know, how do I get in? It seems so overwhelming. Where do I start?
Yeah.
So was LinkedIn the place that you always went for jobs, or how did you go
I was
about
on LinkedIn, a few other sites. I can't remember all the names. I don't know if they're around anymore, but like I was doing that a lot.
Okay.
I was also looking, like blogs were in back then. So I'd see like a Mariana Hewitt or someone like post something about like, fashion jobs or beauty jobs or something. And they'd do a really good job of like listing out jobs and links to things. So I was always like on the blogs, like looking and trying to find stuff.
How do you look for employees now? Do you go on LinkedIn to look for candidates?
It depends. Like I think LinkedIn is definitely the number one place where I always go and look for people, just because you can see where everyone's been, like what jobs they've had, links to other people, and find connections. So I think that's probably one of the best places. Even the jobs on there are now being posted. Like if you're in California, New York, now they have to post the salaries and all that kind of stuff. So it's so important. I think if you are looking for a job in marketing, that LinkedIn should be the place to start, and like following those companies that you want to see jobs come out of, because they'll usually post like, hey, we have a new job posting or something. I always go and I'll follow the ones that I've been looking forward to. Like, maybe they'll have a job for me someday.
Did you ever feel intimidated when applying to a job?
I don't feel intimidated anymore. I think in the beginning, like
you were,
not
like, in
having
your
as much
early 20s,
experience.
you're right.
Yeah, but now I'm like, I know what I bring to the table.
Yeah, well, now
so
she's a boss bitch, you know? She's like, have you seen my resume?
Exactly. So I just.
But in the beginning, you're back to college life. So how was that girl dealing with applying for jobs? And where was your mental space at when applying for jobs? And how did you process kind of like, I guess you could call it the imposter of, am I going to be good for this? But you were still applying.
Yeah.
So you
I was
weren't
always
letting
applying.
it,
No,
yeah.
I wasn't. I was still applying. Like I said, I was just very excited about the opportunity. So I think that showed when I was interviewing or just in general looking for stuff. I was applying to everywhere that I thought would be cool. And like whatever lands, lands, and whatever doesn't. Like I don't think I was bummed if something didn't work out. I just kind of think everything happens for a reason, and everything's led me to this point. So
Did you ever have to work in a non-beauty space in between jobs?
No, actually haven't. I've done a lot of beauty related stuff, and even when I was in between waiting for another opportunity, I worked at like Shein or contracted on different accounts that have all been like beauty or fashion related.
And I think a lot of people don't take the opportunities of contracts because it's just a contract, but a lot of contract jobs can evolve to an actual full-time position.
Yeah.
If you do a good job.
Yeah, like Shein actually wanted to hire me, but I was like looking at Fenty Beauty at the time. So of course it was kind of like, not sure. Yeah, exactly. Not sure this is for me. And Shein was huge like at the height of the pandemic too. And I worked with them like on a special project that they did for this whole charity event for COVID, which was actually really cool. But they were like actually looking to hire me on as well. But just based on everything that was going on and like the potential to work at Fenty Beauty, which was like a dream job for me at the time, I was like, this is great, but I'm holding out for something a little bit better.
And that was going to be my next question. So what was your dream brand to work for? It was Fenty?
It was Fenty. Yeah, it was.
And then how did
Fenty.
that come about? How did you feel when applying and then finally getting the answer of, after X amount of interviews, you've got the job?
It was a lot of interviews for sure. But I think one thing that got me noticed is after I left OPI, I went to e.l.f. actually. And I was actually referred to e.l.f. from Grant, because Grant and I met at OPI. And you know Grant is one of my close friends and he's great. So he recommended me for e.l.f. and I went over there and we got to do a lot of cool stuff. Like I was just actually talking to the team the other day about all the stuff we got to do when I first got there. I mean, you saw us do like Beautyscape and do like really fun,
That's how
cool
I actually
things.
met Sam.
Yeah.
Not only do we have mutual friends that we now hang out on a occasional, constant, very random basis, but we have a group of close friends. But also, I actually submitted to e.l.f. Beautyscape. And I feel like that's the last one that happened that was really big. And then unfortunately, due to the pandemic, the winners had to like swift in their winning their thing that it was like a launch of, I thought it was so cool. It was like the craziest, most stressful 3 days of my life. You create an entire summer collection while you're getting videotaped with a group of 8 people in a destination of their choice. We literally got there and they're like, all right, 3, 2, 1, go. And it's everybody's just running back to their room. We have to create an entire summer collection. We have a graphic designer at all times coming up with concepts to be able to showcase, to present by Sunday to Target, e.l.f., Bustle, and a few other people in that world that is not only extremely overwhelming and scary, but also so invigorating. Yeah. And it just like brings out the creative of you like never before. I would do it again all the time, but it was very stressful. And that's where I actually got to know Sam.
Yeah.
And yeah, so then from there, you did that.
So yeah, I did a lot of cool things. We did like a really huge like TikTok campaign. So then I think Fenty kind of like took notice, and then like brands do, like they always want to bring like someone cool or like keep an eye out on like what other brands are doing. That is
was
like,
that
really...
around the time where the TikTok song came out of Eyes, Lips, Face? Okay.
That was like the first big campaign that I worked on with them. So that was, I think Fenty was kind of like taking notice of us taking TikTok by storm, and then kind of like was looking at key players and who was making this happen. So I'm sure my name popped up because that was one of the first things they asked me about in the interview, was like, give us the process, tell us what happened. So that was cool. Like it was just actually like being noticed and people seeking you out. Like I think that's the first time where that's really happened to me. And then like from the Dream brand, of course, I was like head over heels. So yeah, that was fun.
So you got Fenty.
Yes. So
were you at any point scared of the position? Because it was such a big, I mean, working for Fenty at the time, when I think when you got on, it was the it brand. And I still think it's like the it brand to work for. You can't get bigger than Fenty because they're so known for their wide ranges, their inclusivity. They're just very detailed with their campaigns and their releases. Did you feel at that time you're like, I'm ready for this?
It was intimidating, I will say. Like in the beginning, it was very intimidating. And I think more so just because we were all working remote. So that brings like a whole other element of like, I don't know these people. And there was a little bit of like drama, of course, behind the scenes, as there always is. A little corporate drama.
I mean, but you already had dealt with a little corporate drama, right? And past companies.
Yes, exactly. So kind of being thrown into something else, which I ended up handling really well, I would say. But it was also a volatile time where all the protests and things were happening. It was just a weird, weird time. And then working directly with like Rihanna's team and like being on text with like her social person, and like it was a lot for sure.
Now, when you have dealt with things like having to deal with corporate people, other creatives, maybe it's social teams of the CEOs, like in this case, it was celebrity-based company, or past companies like you worked in, Joico, OPI, e.l.f., and you're having to respond to other people, whether it's other people of other ethnicities or a different gender. How have you been able to tackle that while standing firm in the fact that you want to be respected, right? Because as a Latina, as a woman, a lot of times people can oversee you and be like, I don't give a F.
Yeah.
So how have you tackled that? Because your demeanor since I've met you has always been, don't F with me. And you've always given that. So in a setting where now you have to answer to others when you have been disrespected or when you have been talked down to, for anybody that is listening, how have you tackled that in the most professional but assertive way?
I think I'm just a very direct person. I don't like the fluff. I don't like to BS around. Like, I think also that kind of rubs some people the wrong way. Like, they're not used to that. Like, they want you to sit there and kiss their ass. And you're like, but this isn't how it's going to work, or doesn't make sense. And I think just being knowledgeable and being confident in what you know is helpful, because then you can just stand your ground and say like, no, I don't think this is going to work. And respectfully, I disagree with you.
Have you ever chosen to leave a job because of the way you were being treated?
Oh, yeah, for sure.
And did you ever feel guilty, or did you ever question like, damn, should I have not said that? Because now I'm having to leave a position because I stood up for myself.
No, I don't think I have, because something always better comes along. Something that's better suited for me comes along. And I feel like that's my feeling of like relief that I did the right thing.
Yeah.
You know, just saying like I did the right thing and something better did come along.
And I think also it gives you a kind of feeling of assurance that sometimes you know it's your time to go, and you keep accepting things because you're so scared of what if something doesn't come, and then you take the jump and it's like the floodgates of heaven open. Exactly. And they're like, there's this and there's this and there's this. And you're like, oh, all I had to do was jump. Yeah. Okay, so now you're at Fenty and you're you're dealing with corporate, you're having to deal with an artist who is great, but also has different teams that you have to respond to. So how long were you at Fenty?
I was there 2 years. Exactly. Yeah.
And then what makes you say, this is my dream job, but I don't think it's my dream anymore? Yeah. You know, it's like a bittersweet moment.
Yeah. I think the pandemic definitely like sobered everything up for me when it came to like the dream job, just because we were dealing with so much. Like I came in, the team was a team of like 6 or 7, and then like midway through everybody had quit, and it was like me and like a coordinator, and then that was stressful. Like during the holidays when everybody's worried about Sephora and like, making sales and like 2 big launches, but we're still killing it despite there only being 2 people. So I think I just became very jaded through the whole process. It was a lot to handle. The pandemic wasn't easy on anybody, like whether you had a job that you were in love with, and then I think it just kind of like helped me slowly fall out of love with doing that kind of stuff. I just kind of felt like it was time for me to take a step back and not be so stressed out, you could say. Because it is stressful, like working with a celebrity brand, because there's a lot of demand and there's a lot of back and forth and stuff. So it's kind of like, is this always going to be for me? Probably not long term.
And you know, like on my side of it, as an influencer that did have a relationship with you, there's something that I always tell influencers that ask me, oh my God, how do you have such relationships with these brands and you're micro and all this stuff and you've been able to get partnerships? And I think that people don't realize that, one, you guys are still humans.
Yeah.
And you still have to cultivate that relationship, because something that I've noticed in your story is that you guys are always bouncing, whether it be because of the way the world is going, whether the shifts in jobs, budget cuts, and things of that sort. And I think that even my relationship with you started at e.l.f., but everywhere you've gone, the relationship, not only on the personal side, because we've gotten to know each other on a personal side, but also we've been able to cultivate on the business side a relationship where I respect you and you respect me as a creator. Right. And you've always thought of me for opportunities. And I think that creators need to be aware of, you guys aren't cultivating the relationships with these marketing brand reps that can literally go from a small brand to the VP of a brand within a few months or a few years. And you guys remember who actually gave a crap about you.
Oh, yeah. I mean, even like me leaving Fenty and coming to Naturium, I mean, granted, we got sold and I think everybody's noticing the brand a little bit more now, but you kind of like remember those people that like the minute they see that you leave, they kind of, you know, you've reached out and you're like, oh, I want to invite you to events or come do this. And they kind of like reject you. And you never forget that, because there are people that work at these brands and there are people that are going to remember that sort of behavior. And people talk it because it can go around the industry too. The industry is small.
Yeah.
So outside of brands, like I could have a friend at like Tower 28 or a friend at like Josie Moran, and like we could all be like, don't work with this creator because she's very much in it for herself, or she's terrible to work with, or whatever it might be. Like I think just having that professional relationship gets you like long. And the respect, exactly. Like just even if it's not a brand you might be too keen with, but show them a little bit of love here and there if you want to maintain the relationship with them.
What made you want to go from a brand like Fenty Beauty, where you're literally at the height of it, to then saying, I think I want to go and work for this brand that's starting and branching out, and it comes from a YouTuber and it's not celebrity based and it's a skincare brand. I'm leaving makeup and I'm about to take a smaller role necessarily because you're having to rebuild. But at this point, I guess in Fenty, you have a very small team, but it's still a big company to a smaller seed.
Yeah. Like I said, I was just ready for change. So I think that was the number one thing. And I had like all these things that I wanted to make sure the next company had. And like Naturium had that for me. And then just kind of being friends with Susan over the years. She and I actually used to work together at Joico. She has her own production agency. And so she used to produce all our videos for us. So she and I kind of like reconnected while I was at Fenty / like in the process of leaving. And she was kind of like, I've built this like amazing brand. We're getting ready to take it to like the next level. Like, and that also sounded exciting because I'm like, this is something that I haven't had a chance to do before, and like taking this brand. And skincare was a place I also hadn't dabbled in yet. Right. Like I did nails, hair, makeup. Like now it's time to go do like skincare, something else. So now like I have the full portfolio in my back pocket. But yeah, I think that was the exciting part of it. Like just knowing how fast this brand was growing and like how it was catching everybody's eyes, and like the fact that we had an opportunity to kind of build it and make it something new was exciting.
Do you have a dream brand to work with now at this point in your career?
You know what? I say I have dream people. Okay. So I've actually thought about, after you asked me this question, I was like, what do I have? If Bad Bunny came out with a line.
Okay, come on, manifestation.
Manifestation.
I feel like he'd come out with a nail polish brand.
He could.
I feel like it would make so much sense.
I don't know how it would do. Like nail polish is, you know.
Yeah, it's kind of like low budget.
Yeah, low budget.
Who was it? Somebody came out with a nail polish brand, Machine Gun Kelly.
Yeah.
I think, right? That's what it is.
maybe.
Machine Gun Kelly, I think, has a nail polish brand.
Harry Styles, I think, too.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah, it is hairstyles.
Yeah.
Well, I think Machine Gun Kelly came out with something, too. But
Did he,
anyways,
too?
Yeah.
But
So
yeah,
Bad
I'm
Bunny.
like, if Bad Bunny came out with something, if Karol G came out with something, like, let's do it.
Would you ever change the marketing brand world to go work for music marketing? Because you just mentioned 2 music people.
I did. I wouldn't be opposed to it.
Okay.
I think it'd be cool. I think at this point, like I've done so much beauty that I like feel very confident in it. But it's also like maybe it's time to go stretch and do something else.
I feel like your confidence came from really early on. Where do you think that came from, though?
I'm just very independent.
Yeah. Where did the
Since-
independence come from? Was it like your mom growing up, your grandma, your aunt? Do you have a memory of even maybe them not telling you things, but somebody instilling this in you since an early age?
I would say it would be my grandma and my mom for sure. My grandma was always like, one of the things she would always say, whenever you would walk around as a little kid, I would always be like, sola, sola, sola. Like I just wanted to do everything by myself. And I think I did get that from her because she was always encouraging us to be the kids that knew how to like tie their own shoes and like the kids that knew how to eat without their hands. Like you actually know how to hold a fork and put it up to your mouth. Like don't use your hands. So I think things like that. And my mom's also like a firecracker and she was always very intent on kind of being on her own. So I think she's always kind of been that kind of way as well. So I would say I get it from them.
Okay.
My independence from them.
Is there a moment in your career that you're like, this just confirmed that this is what I'm supposed to be doing, even if you've already left that company? And what was that moment for you?
I think when we sold Naturium, I think that was just definitely a moment where I was like, wow, like this actually worked. Like,
Yeah, because you
we
started
did
from
it.
the beginning.
Yeah,
with
exactly. I started from the beginning and it just felt like everything we did helped to take us to the next level. And I just felt like very proud about that moment. So I will say that was definitely something. And then I've had other moments throughout my career too, but that's probably one of the latest ones.
The latest and probably one of the biggest
Yeah.
because it's sold for a lot of money. So
Definitely.
now, men and women in the beauty industry, do you feel like there is a sense of, even though it's the beauty industry, there's a sense of, I'm still the man in this and you're going to listen to me?
You mean in the beauty industry?
Yeah, in the beauty
Yeah,
industry, in
for
the sense
sure.
of salary pay, in the sense of the way they speak to you and the way they handle you.
Oh, yeah, definitely.
Why do you think that? Just
Because
like-
men are men. Because men are men and they're intimidated by strong women. And I think that's always just going to be the case.
Have you just been one that has said, you're not going to speak to me this way and just dealt with it that way? Or...
Yeah, I mean, I've definitely butted heads with men in the industry, and it is what it is.
Do you ever deal with that problem when it comes to also salary pay? Because I know in other industries, there's also that big gap. I think it's like in the actors with the huge difference of salary pays. So do you also feel like that happens in the beauty industry?
I think so. I think especially now that like you're being told your salaries when it comes to LinkedIn and like job opportunities. So now you can kind of like go and see like, if I'm making this much, like this is the job they're posting. This guy came in and made this much. It's always a constant battle. You're always fighting for your freaking salary.
Right. And when do you think is your time to move on?
Good question. I think I'll just kind of know when I'm either not motivated anymore or there's something else that comes along that like is too big to give up and say no to. So I think that's when I'll kind of know that it's time.
Would you say in the marketing world, or maybe you can prefix this into any job, whether you're listening, that it's not something you always have to be tied to and that you could continuously keep moving throughout life? And listen, it seems like you listen to your gut a lot when you go and move on. It's not like an aha moment here or this traumatic thing happened there. It's just you sit with yourself and you're like, it's time to move on. How do you stay not being so attached to the jobs that you've had if, you know, Fenty was a dream of yours?
Yeah.
And then you're like, it's time to move on. And it seems like even though you've had individual loves and passions for these brands as you've gone on, you still have had an ease in moving on. Because I know that sometimes the fear of, is there going to be something better? Obviously, we just talked about it recently. Doors will always open. But also, will there be something better? What if now I take this risk and now there's not? Or, but I'm so comfortable here. My hours are flexible here, but it's not pushing me creatively.
Yeah.
Or my hours are horrible here, but it's pushing me creatively. Do you just continuously go with your gut feeling? Do you sit on it for a certain amount of time? Do you talk to your friends or do you talk to your parents about it? Do you have anybody that you lean on for that? A mentor?
I actually don't have a mentor, which I need to find one because I haven't. about that.
It's so hard to find
hard
a
to find
mentor.
one, I
And
know.
everybody says that it's supposed to come to you. And I'm like,
and a lot of successful people have mentors, so I do know that. I do lean on friends. Like Grant's a good example. Like, he and I are good at like doing pros and cons lists and weighing the possibilities. I think I would also say just knowing that these roles, like corporate roles especially, anytime you're replaceable. Like they will always, it doesn't matter if you're actually really not, because like I have examples of many times I've left jobs and it's taken like 3 to 4 people to replace the one single job I was doing. So
I know one of those jobs.
Right? But it's also like, exactly, just knowing that you are replaceable and that these jobs like really don't give a F about you at the end of the day, like when it comes down to their dollar, and just being like, okay, so then I need to figure out what's right for me, and kind of sitting with that yourself. And like I said, having a friend to like soundboard these kinds of things off of and be like,
Yeah,
okay.
and if you don't have a friend, the pro and cons list is such a great idea and tidbit to take away, because of the fact that sometimes our head gets so overwhelmed with the questions that we have ourselves, our inner voice, our, you know, what we hear, the hearsay that might happen. So it's like writing it down, you can visually see what is the truth of this and this, and what makes sense for me. Whether it's, you know, I know that for Fenty, they wanted you to move, and some brands, they want you to be in the state that most of the team is in. So it's like, if that is a non-negotiable for you, then that's not a con.
Yeah, exactly.
And you're able to see it more visibly than like, all right.
Yeah.
Or you might be like, it might be scary, but I'm kind of tired of Texas. I'm kind of tired of New York. I'm kind of tired of LA. It doesn't really look like a con. It's just scary. It's actually a pro, because it might push me to advance and grow and expand and meet new people if I'm already feeling lonely in the state that I'm in.
Yeah.
So why am I stopping? This actually is going to food. This is going to give me money, something that I might be fearful of if trying to move. They might even give you corporate housing at some of these jobs at first. So I love that you said that. But you said pros and cons list with your friend. Anything else?
I just think I sit with it for a little bit, and besides the pros and cons list, it's like, what are some non-negotiables or things I want in this next job? Like, what am I manifesting for this next role to be? And like, I think Naturium was a good example of that. Like, I wanted better work-life balance. I wanted to be able to go into the office, but not every day. To have like a flex schedule, have unlimited PTO, like things like that you're just like kind of looking for. And then thinking, kind of putting that towards where you want to go next, and making that sort of like part of what you're seeing for yourself too. You're like, this is going to work out. I'm seeing this for myself.
Yeah. When you've been in all these different job titles that you've had, you've been VP, you've been director, you've been senior, there always has been somebody above you that you have to answer to and respond to. Has there ever been a situation where somebody has talked to you in a way that wasn't the best? And what kind of pep talk did you give yourself to be able to pass through that moment?
I think, just giving myself a pep talk on, you truly believe this, you know this is the right thing to do. Basically, stand on it and do it in a respectful way so that they can hear you. And if they don't hear you, then that's kind of on them, I think. I know what I stand for, and I know what I believe in when it comes to XYZ, when it comes to this role. And I'm going to tell you about it, and I'm going to be direct about what I think works, what doesn't, and leave that to you. But you just kind of like keep that going in your mind, and like, I'm just going to stand firm. And then there are other times when you can be like, is this actually worth the battle? Like, is this actually worth me making a bigger deal out of it? And do I just kind of let them tell me what to do in this situation? But most of the time, it's going to be the first one, because, I mean, there's a reason you have your gut intuition and the way that you feel about something. So that's what I tell myself.
Have you ever been embarrassed publicly or via camera, Zoom meetings or anything like that, and had to step away from it? And if anybody has ever dealt with that, have you ever had to confront the situation? And how do you confront it from a place of not using emotional? Because a lot of the times in these workplaces, you could be talked down to at occasional times. And the first thing a woman will get told is you're being really emotional, you know? So how can you present and come forward with, hey, I didn't like how this, without adding your emotional feeling to it? Because you're still a human. So you still deal with the emotion of, you might be like, I want to say F you to this person, but I can't. Yeah. So do you write it down before? Do you just take a second to step back?
I'm very much a person that will take it in, and how I react is I have to sit with it for a second. So I think that's helped me, because you don't react right away.
Right.
I think just like stewing with it for a second, and you go through all the terrible scenarios in your mind first, and then you kind of like get to a point where like, okay, rationally thinking, how would I phrase this, or how would I speak to this person because they just really pissed me off? Yeah. You know, so I think there's always so much more when you can always step away from a situation and just like calm yourself down.
Do you recommend speaking about it or writing an email about it?
It depends on like what the situation is. Like if the situation is something that you need to speak to someone face to face about, because it's something that happened. I don't know. I think it just depends on the issue and what you feel like it requires, because an email could feel too small for a situation or
could make it really long and ramble.
Yeah, exactly. So I think as long as you can be concise, you can say it in an email, or you can also be concise and say it to somebody's face.
What would you tell your younger self now that you're at this position, that you've worked with so many huge brands, you've had so many different roles, you've been able to help sell a company to the amount that it was sold? Would younger self Sam think you would have ever done any of this?
Probably not, no.
And what would you tell
At
her
least,
now?
I mean, I would just tell her everything's going to be okay, and that you're going to find your way, and that everything works out, and you're going to be better than you even thought. So I think when you're little, you have different expectations and what you think you're going to be. And I think everything's worked out exactly how it's supposed to.
And I think that in that, our older self and our younger self are so similarly different in that, because of the fact that right now you have things that you're battling about your future.
Yeah,
that you're like,
true.
I wonder what's going to happen in 10 years. Am I going to
Yeah.
hit this mark? Am I going to hit that mark? But if you look at it, you always do. If
Yeah.
you just like let the mind, let the nervous system relax, really trust
Don't worry.
and
Yeah.
not worry and focus. If you're intentional and you focus in what you want to do, you always eventually get there. You get where you're supposed to be. And I think that like I'm so excited to see where you're gonna go, because every time that I'm like,
too.
oh my God, she hit here, she hit there, you
Yeah.
just go and do something even bigger. But for all those that listened, I hope you guys enjoyed this episode so much. I hope you guys were able to take something from it, at least a pros and cons list when having
for
to go
sure.
to your next position, not staying at a job for too long. There's always an expiration date, and it's not a negative.
Yeah,
It's not a negative, because if you need to be pushed creatively or start creating new boundaries to yourself, then so be it. Take it. Doors will always open when you move with intention and when you work hard. And you got to work hard for where
have
you want to
to.
go.
Yeah.
But thank you so much for being here. I hope you guys
you. Thanks for
enjoyed
having
this
me.
episode. And thank you so much for watching and listening.